I feel like a fish with no water.
Brought to you by the EPA, the Ad Council, and this station.
Alrighty, back here on KPOO San Francisco 89.5 FM. My name is Derek Keller. It is the top of the hour, and once again, I'm so thankful to have Kristen DiAngelo and Pearl Callahan here, two sex worker, documentarian advocates that are based out of San Francisco.
Yes.
You'll both have to get closer, so I didn't.
Close to San Francisco. Yes.
That's good, right there. Northern California.
Yes. Yeah.
And where did you shoot most of that documentary, the American Courtesans, which you were here talking about last time, probably 6 months ago?
It was shot between New York, D.C., New Orleans, Las Vegas, Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Sacramento.
You traveled a lot to do that.
Yes.
To speak with all these different women about their lives as courtesans, or otherwise known as a prostitute, or escort, I guess.
Or sex worker. We all have different titles that we use for our job.
Yeah, how do you know which one? I mean, do you just make it up? I'm an escort, prostitute, call girl. I mean, are they all the same or not really?
Well, for me, I am and I was a prostitute.
Right.
And I never referred to myself as
Escort.
a sex worker or anything else, you know. It is what it is.
No, I know, but it just seems like...
But that's what I referred myself to.
Right. There's just labels that, for some reason, we're inundated with through TV and...
It makes other people more comfortable.
Yeah, I guess it does. I mean, when I hear the word escort, I don't know. It doesn't seem like a big deal, I guess. And they've had so many cases over the year. I mean, Heidi Fleiss had a bunch of escorts working for her. You didn't always hear it as Heidi Fleiss had a bunch of prostitutes working for her.
It's sort of, I think we have changed and morphed the name of the profession basically because as laws target prostitutes, then you can become massage workers in a massage parlor. As they target massage workers, then you become an escort as they target escorts. So it's sort of like we change your name, and many people actually pick the name of the profession based on the area of the industry they're in. So people who are maybe strippers but occasionally see a client for pay for sex might say they're a sex worker or they're a dancer. Somebody who's an escort who spends a lot of time going out, even if sex were involved in it, they might say, but I'm an escort. And it's much safer and it's much less confrontational, too, with other people. You say you're a prostitute and everybody goes, like, no, she didn't say that.
Yeah. What do law enforcement officials think if you happen to run into them? I mean, have either of you ever had a confrontation with a police officer and said, what are you doing out? And, I'm a escort.
I haven't had it in that context. When I was a kid, I was arrested, so I did have one interaction there. Of course, in the years in the street when I was younger, you have quite a few interactions. They know who you are and everything else. As I've become older and, I do most of my work, like I have a website and it's internet-based. You really don't have interactions at that point with police officers.
It's the safest way to do it.
Yes. And if you do, it's probably not in a good context. Or you don't know that they're police officers, if you do.
Right. I was just thinking, actually, as soon as you said, working in the street or something, I worked at a hotel last year. I'm not going to name which one it was. It was downtown. And in the security area where the two guys eat Cheetos and watch, the security tapes, they had a big list of, they call them bolos, like be on the lookout. Is that what that means?
Yes.
And it was, I'm such a clueless dummy. I was like, oh, who are these girls on this list? And what is this list about? And it was just like security images. But those, they claimed, were all, escorts or somebody working at the hotel trying to pick up guys. And I remember when they told me that, I was like, are you kidding? Because, I wouldn't have thought that these types of girls that I see all the time in San Francisco were all, working like that.
They do all kinds of stuff. They'll take, on the websites, they'll take girls' pictures off the website, and then they'll pass them around to hotels. So if you're going to check into a hotel, even if you're not working, they may refuse service to you.
That's crazy, yeah.
They just won't even let you go to the hotel yeah.
It is crazy. Nobody else has to go through this,
Yeah.
Nobody.
Well, let's talk about, first, I'm sorry. You're here for a very important reason because you have an event tonight that you want to talk about. It's It's at the Hilton San Francisco in the Financial District, 750 Kearny. All are welcome, and it's a panel. It's called The Collateral Damage, Sex Workers, and the Anti-Trafficking Campaign. So tell us a little bit about that, please.
The panel tonight is a panel of sex workers, activists, researchers who are talking about the actual collateral damage of the anti-trafficking campaigns. In the media and very much in public opinion, prostitution has been conflated with trafficking.
Child trafficking.
Yes.
Right.
So it's almost like they're targeting all of us. And even with their best efforts, I mean, these are people who are trying to do good and they're, trying to help the kids out there. But their best efforts actually very often re-victimize those children in a horrific manner. For instance, one of the things we're going to be talking about is the current in-demand campaigns where they target the clients because they believe if they...
I've seen those. There's one, I was driving in through San Francisco today. There's a big billboard. It says, I don't know, something about don't hire child prostitutes. But
right.
Yeah.
But then they make it like, well, if you hire any prostitute, then you're going to abuse a child. I mean, which we know that that's a fake argument. That doesn't even work.
Yeah.
But what they don't understand is their idea is that if you decrease the demand side, you'll decrease the supply side.
Right.
What they don't realize, when you decrease the clients, you can't decrease those kids' hunger. It's not going away. All you're going to do is force them to commit some serious crime or get into unsafe vehicles or do things out of desperation because what you've done is you've taken the food out of those children's mouth.
Right.
So the actual efforts they do to try to save them actually harm them more.
So that's what's going to be the topic of discussion tonight. And that's obviously a huge issue because, we talked about this last time. The biggest thing you hear about with prostitution nowadays in the news is child trafficking.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what is your remedy then because you admit that child trafficking is
absolutely there.
wrong,
Exists.
but you don't agree with it.
No, not
Okay.
at all.
So what do you think should be done?
I believe that we could be the U.S.'s best allies at putting the predators behind bars and in helping to save our youth, but we're silenced. We can't step up and report to law enforcement. Why can't we? We go to jail. So what they do is they put a barrier by targeting us and our clients between us and those lifelines for help. Mm-hmm. Anytime you build a wall like that, you're going to lose a lot of people. And we effectively lose children each day in the U.S. Why? Because we are unable to really sit down with the people who are affected by these laws and figure out how to really make those kids safe. In my mind, every time you take away 20%, 50%, 30% of the clients, you're decreasing that much food that those kids could eat that night.
Let me ask you, Pearl, could you not, as someone working in the world of prostitution, could you not, they don't have a number you could call, like anonymously and say, hey, there are some young ladies on Fillmore Street that might be prostitutes and they look very young. You can't do that?
No, who are you going to call?
I don't know. They should have a 1-800 number.
It doesn't work like that.
No?
Because
I'm naive. I'm just asking.
Well, there's this big thing about distrust,
right?
And so if you're distrusting, there's no way that you're going to reach out to somebody and then put yourself in harm's way, go to jail, take you off the street.
No, I see what you ladies are saying. But even if I was just driving around my Prius, I can't call the police anonymously and say, hey, there's somebody that looks pretty young.
You could.
But let me talk about what would happen if you did, though.
Yeah.
Not me.
They do not have enough services. They spend, I don't know.
That I
don't wanna say
believe.
that, but
Yeah,
people
sure.
spend so much money at criminalizing prostitutes and their clients that we do not have enough money to provide for the kids that are out there. So what happens to that child once they get picked up? Well, they can prosecute them. They can arrest them.
Yeah.
They could throw them into the foster system, which the foster system is not equipped to deal with children who have been through probably what that child has already been through.
Right.
So you're sending them into a world that's not understanding to their needs or what they've been through, which means they're going to run away and end up right back there. So you're creating this cycle of violence and destitution for these kids. Mm-hmm. So reporting isn't necessarily the optimum, because all you're doing is possibly criminalizing them and giving them a record. If our help and our systems were structured right, I mean, think about it. If you're drowning and the lifeguard comes, you're running toward that lifeguard because you want help. If our help facilities and systems were working properly, those kids would be running to them because they would want that lifeline. By the fact they're running away, that tells me we have something that's broken.
I do. I understand exactly what you're saying. I mean, yeah, it's, I know some people who smoke marijuana, and if they were under the influence, they would. If you saw a crime being committed, you more than likely wouldn't, depending on the crime, you wouldn't voluntarily call the police and try to, just because of the stigma of, well, what if I got in trouble, But
you think about yourself first. It's survival.
Yeah, I understand what you ladies are saying, and as far as what would happen if you did report a girl and they did take her in, yeah, I don't trust the system to take care of her at all. So,
and clients who do drive by, okay, clients see this more than anybody, but now we're targeting them. So I've had 2 people this year already come to me going, wow, I walked into this situation, thought, oh my God, and ran out. Of course, I don't even have to ask, did you report? They didn't report. Why? They might go to jail. They're not going to implode their life to save somebody they don't even know, which makes sense.
Yeah.
You're not going to do that. So we, like I said, by the criminalization of the clients, by the criminalization of the workers, we just cut off every lifeline those babies out there have. It's horrible.
Now, you both started in prostitution in your teenage years, before 18.
Yes, we were underage.
Right. And did anybody, I think, maybe it wasn't one of you, but in the documentary, it's not you. It's the woman with red hair, I think, that said
Gina D.
Somebody was taking care of her at some point. Another woman, like she was with a bad pimp. It ended horribly. And then somebody took care of her for a little while, another prostitute or call girl, and bought her clothes in a car or something.
That's usually how we get help.
So did that happen with you? Did either of you have someone step in and help you? And
always.
What was that like?
Well,
and who were they? I mean, don't say a name, but
so can I tell them that story? Okay, so Kristen and I got a call from her. We met when we were working in a massage parlor, right? And it was just something, I don't know, it's like we knew each other forever. Well, maybe it was just a few days later, I get a telephone call from her. And she's telling me that she is in a parking garage on like the 3rd or 4th floor, and this guy, Frankie, is threatening to throw her off of that parking garage if she doesn't go to work for him.
Wow.
And then he was trying to extort money from her, and so I just asked her where she was. That's all I asked her. Where are you? And I just left to go and get her, because we only have each other.
Yeah.
We can't go to anybody else. We only have each other. Working girls.
Right.
That's it.
So that kind of stuff happens all the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
These are daily events when you do not have the protection of the law that other people have.
Yeah, that's all you've ever wanted, too, as far as I can tell from...
Yes.
Yeah, and I mean, it's crazy. You're not asking a whole lot, right?
I would like to know that if somebody broke into my house and raped me and robbed me and beat me, that I could call 911 and stop that man from doing it to other people.
Exactly.
But I know that that's not the case. That's not how it works. It would probably be, and this is to me such a crazy idea, but it's the idea so many people have. It would be like, well, you caused it because of who you are. And I'm thinking, wait a minute. There is no person in the world that could turn me into a predator of that sort. I don't care who they are or what ad they put up. You can't make me do something like that. And I'm not powerful enough to make anybody else do something like that either.
Kristen DiAngelo and Pearl Callahan, 2 sex worker advocates, producer and subject of a documentary called American Courtesans, which I highly recommend. It's on Hulu. You can watch it for free. Go ahead, log on to hulu.com and search for that. It's a great documentary, as I was saying. I watched it last night. If we could, because I never even really got to speak with you about it last time, because it just come out and it wasn't on the internet yet.
No.
Right. Right. So Kristen, in the documentary, you mentioned that, well, first you were molested, correct, at a young age?
Yes, but that isn't. So I want to be very clear that if you line up 100 women, you're probably going to get a number of them that are molested. You're probably going to get a smaller number that are sex workers. So it isn't a correlation to me being a sex worker.
Okay.
But I did, because of life circumstances, have a skill that I was able to carry out in life after that.
And early on, was it right away a pimp found you and you started working for him?
It was, no, not right away. I had started working on my own to survive. And what ended up happening is they were doing the stings and raids that, like, they're going through now. And they were going around to massage parlors checking the IDs to see if you were of age. I needed to get a fake ID. So I made a deal with a girlfriend. Well, not with the girlfriend, but she said she knew somebody who could get me a fake ID. And I had no other way to work. So what did I do? I went and met this guy, and I knew it was probably wrong. I knew it was bad the second I got there, but I had no other options in my mind. So I made an agreement to work for him for a weekend to get the ID, and that turned into 5.5 years of my life.
Wow. Real quick, where is this guy today? Do you have any idea?
No idea.
No idea. Didn't end well then?
No.
Okay. Pearl, did you have a similar beginning?
Yes, I engaged in survival sex also. I was a young mother, and I didn't have a lot of options. I came from a very poor neighborhood, lots of violence, very poor family. And so for me, it was a means to an end. It was a way for me to survive. And I got involved with, my first pimp was somebody that was nothing like a pimp. I mean, he was just like, he looked like, as a matter of fact, he was somebody that I knew, a neighbor. So what I'm saying to you is that when you have nothing, when you're desperate, and when there is, and that was a step up for me. I mean, I know that sounds crazy for me to be with a pimp, but it was a step up for me because my life became better. You know, I came from nothing, so I didn't have to worry about a roof over my head, food. I had somebody to help me take care of my son. I mean, it was better for me than not.
Did either of you start out as exotic dancers?
No.
No.
And why not?
I can't dance.
No, I know, but I mean, did that ever cross your mind?
When I started, I was underage. And so that limits your options of where you can get a job. You can't even get a job at an AM/PM if you're underage. You can't. I didn't have the options. A. B, I want to say it just wasn't in my neighborhood. You know, most people start with what's around you. Yeah. And it's just where I ended up. It was what was going on at the time.
No, go ahead.
Well,
Pearl.
I was just going to say, dancing never crossed my mind, only because I had friends. I knew people that danced. As a matter of fact, in those days, they were topless dancers. They weren't completely nude in those days, okay?
Yeah.
This was during the 70s, okay? It was topless. They were like juice bars, okay? You could call them that.
They still have some of those in San Francisco.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that was before complete nudity. But anyway, I knew people that worked in those clubs, and for me, I couldn't take my clothes off in front of
it's a lot more
complete
people,
strangers and dance
I could
in
see
front
that
of people. I
being,
just couldn't do that. So that was never an option for me.
And you know what? One of the most interesting things I found out about the documentary was how many prostitutes and also clients are comfortable having sex with another partner outside of their wife, and on both sides justifying it equally. I mean, that was a really cool way. You showed it well in your documentary, but it was also something I didn't really think I would hear a prostitute say or a client. I thought, a client's probably ashamed to go to a prostitute, knowing that maybe in some instances they spoke about having a wife that's ill and like cannot have intercourse. And then also all the women were very, comforting about it and consoling. Like, this man has needs, he needs them taken care of. Unfortunately, his wife can't do it.
We wrap up things in the United States as being really neat and tidy, black and white, right and wrong. We don't give a lot of leeway for human need and the fact that people's situations all vary and are all different. We don't live in a perfect world. Loneliness is a huge factor even when people are married sometimes.
Right.
There's a huge amount of loneliness, and men can't go around talking to their friends about it. It doesn't work like that. You know, it's just not a perfect world, and there's a lot of human need. I'm not now and have never been in a place to judge somebody if what they're doing is right or wrong. That's between them and their partner or their life. There's a personal responsibility for all choices we make as humans. It just is not my business what their world is outside of what they come to me for. Mm-hmm. And I'm definitely not there to judge them because I really don't know the realities of their world. So I think that we like to believe that people get married and they're happy forever after, that there's rainbows and butterflies and everybody's skipping around and happy. That's not the reality of what life really is. And by teaching people that, we I think, do them a huge disservice. We take away their humanity, and we take away their need for affection and attention and for human touch and interaction. So I don't know that I have ever viewed it as right or wrong, but I do know that if we were more compassionate, that maybe people could talk about it a little more, and we would see that there are all kinds of marriages. Some people's wives even know they see us, you know, and you might think that's not true, but in filming, we had one wife drive her husband to the filming.
Yes.
Wow.
So, in fact, it was pretty emotional for everybody involved because she was very thankful because of their situation and what had occurred.
That's fascinating.
So,
Kristen DiAngelo and Pearl Callahan are here. Again, you can see them tonight and enjoy a very interesting conversation. I'm sure a big event here at the Hilton in San Francisco in the Financial District, 750 Kearny Street. That's today at 6 p.m. downtown. Go check that out. We'll be right back. I'm going to go to a quick break and grab a shot of 5-Hour Energy drink.
Son, you're a young man now. I just wanted...
KPOO San Francisco is a listener-supported radio station and a nonprofit 501c3 organization. KPOO not only plays the best music around, and music you wouldn't normally hear, it also caters to the needs of populations traditionally underrepresented in mainstream media. Please send a donation to KPOO at P.O. Box 156650, San Francisco 94115. Or you can do a donation by way of PayPal. Just go to kpoo.com and click on donations. Help keep your listener-supported radio station on the air. Please send a donation to KPOO, P.O. Box 156650, San Francisco, California 94115. And of course, remember, all donations are tax deductible, so please keep your community-based radio station on the air. And thank you very much.
Alrighty, back here on KPOO San Francisco 89.5 FM. Joining me again for the second time in a year is the lovely Pearl Callahan and Kristen DiAngelo, two female escorts,
Yes.
Also documentarians, subjects of a documentary called American Courtesans, and not moderators at the event tonight, but
panelists.
Okay. And again, that's at the Hilton in San Francisco, Financial District, 750 Kearny Street. Do they need to RSVP or can they just show up?
They can just show up.
Okay. Just bring your umbrella because it's pouring out there. So again, American Courtesans, I watched it last night. It's just fascinating documentary. And I have not seen a documentary from a prostitute's point of view, I don't think, that I can think of, more than, one girl talking about a specific incident. I'm thinking of I don't know if you watched the Elliot Spitzer one.
Yeah.
Client 9.
I've seen that one.
Yeah, but you're talking to a fragment of the population of that world, and they all worked for the same, at the same area service. So I mean, that's not a very good representation.
Well, it's just a small representation,
Right.
and what we tried to do is we tried to work across the United States with different sex workers who were from different backgrounds, socioeconomic backgrounds, different
You
races,
nailed that.
different
You
everything.
had a great range of different women. I mean, they looked all completely different, and some worked, I think some said they did work as a stripper, some said that they worked as a call girl, some said they worked on the streets, some worked, So it was a great cross-section. That was fantastic. And you did all the interviewing, Kristen, didn't you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But Pearl,
Except she interviewed me. So Pearl
that's
sort
right.
of cross-interviewed me so that when we began doing this, it was my belief, and I still believe this was true, is that unless I was willing to what I call throw down, to actually put my life out there and be an open book, that why would I expect that anybody I knew or anybody
That's a good point.
else would? So I had to sort of be willing to put my money where my mouth was and actually do it myself. Like say, here it is, all walls down. What do you want to know?
one of the greatest ways to get people to tell something about themselves is for you to say something first. Then they feel safe, and then creates a conversation. Again, American Courtesans is on Hulu. Courtesans, Courtesans, American Courtesans on Hulu. Check that out. We were talking about child trafficking, and that's one of the bigger issues with prostitution, mostly because that's what the media would like to. I mean, it is a huge issue. And especially outside of the United States. I mean, you hear horror stories about children in Cambodia, and it's not even at all. It's not even an honest. The kids are essentially kidnapped, and oftentimes parents are lied to, or they get a little bit of money, and it's just a horrible, horrible cycle. Do you know much about? I mean, obviously you've worked in the United States, and your focus is probably here and getting our laws changed and transformed. But do you know much about the rest of the world's
I've
deal with
worked
it?
in Paris, France. I've worked in Rome and Italy. I've worked in Amsterdam. I've worked in London. I've worked all across Australia, and I've worked across Canada. I've seen some of this. You're starting to see more and more of it here in the United States after the fall of communist Russia. There was such poverty that you see, and I continue to see people funneling in from there. You do see some of it. It's not like you see it from the traffickers in. What you do is you run across people in the sex trade where you get the feeling, or that they may or may are not here of their free will. I even want to say that's not black and white, because I was on the East Coast, and I was in a situation where I was speaking to some Russian women who were, I guess they come in 3 months, and then when their visa's done, they send them out and bring other girls in. And I was talking to this one girl, and I was asking her, well, do you want to be here?
Right.
Is this of your own free will? And she actually told me, I would rather be here than anywhere else, because they're just going to send me home in someplace else.
Yeah, that seems to be. There was one of the women in the documentary said something that I've heard a lot from prostitutes on television and the media, and she said, "Yeah, I could be a waitress or something, but I just can't make it on $24,000 a year." And then so that's one aspect I think that drives a lot of women to it, is the fact that if you're not doing that, what are you going to do, and are you ready to live that way?
Well, the thing.
And do you have mouths to feed, and other people to support, or something like that?
I think it's very hard for me, because people separate this because it has to do with sex, as if we are not working and we're not allowed to use our bodies as everybody else is.
Right.
And people often say, well, it's because it's not good for you. Well, neither is boxing. Get those people out of the rings. Neither is football. And oh my gosh, that is a national pastime, watching people possibly get injured for life or killed. But we love it. So there are so many things that are physical labor that maybe are not the best for your body. And yet we allow everybody else to have agency over their body and work with their body to earn a living. But when it comes to this, we all of a sudden draw the line. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's legal to work. It's legal to have sex. It's not legal to have sex for money and make it work. I don't get it. I can go sleep with 10 guys at a bar. I can lie to them about my total intention. I could take and buy them as many things and
Buy
spend
as-
as much
right.
money as I want on them to get them in bed,
Yeah.
do whatever I want. But the second I say, okay, let's be honest about this, I've created I've committed a crime. It's insane.
You know, one thing that that wasn't in the documentary, and I didn't even think to ask last time, was you both started prostituting in the 80s, I want to say?
70s.
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 I mean, I haven't heard any women discuss this. What was it like working, as AIDS ballooned all over the nation? I mean, that must have been...
But when it came out, I remember when I heard it on TV.
Right.
And back in those days, I worked in the houses up in Nevada a lot. I found that to be a safer way. You're always trying to get away and
Right.
get safer. So I worked up there a lot, and we didn't use condoms at all. In fact, it was sort of this belief, you charged the client more for a condom back then, so they had to pay for it.
Oh, my gosh.
Yes, and the belief is that the latex would do wear and tear on your body through time, and so it was actually more destructive. Now, crazy as that may sound, those were the rules. So when I remember where I was sitting in front of a TV when I heard about AIDS, but at first I thought it was a gay man's disease, so that's what they were talking about. But as it started falling out, the next 5 years of my life, I mean, you would have thought I was like a clinic junkie. I kept getting tested over and over and over, and the reality of what could have happened to me. So at least I was smart enough to know as soon as I started hearing about it that I need to get my butt in and make sure. But it was horrible.
Did you start using condoms at that point?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're talking all over that. All of a sudden you're like, oh, my gosh, you became so
Clients
paranoid.
must have requested that, too. I mean, I can't...
Believe it or not, clients will more often, not that most of them do request it,
Now,
but you still have a lot of guys that don't.
but at the time, though, I mean, AIDS
Well,
was everywhere, all over the news, and
Yeah, but still, because men were so used to not having to use them,
yeah.
it's a hard thing to change a habit of. Maybe they say they don't have the same sensation.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Well, I'm lucky that AIDS was not taken care of, but, not nearly as big of a deal by the time I, grew up. So,
Yeah.
but I just imagined that for you ladies, that must have been, mind-boggling. And I wonder how many women just quit the business altogether at that point.
I don't think that a lot of people quit, but I didn't hear anybody go, oh, there's AIDS, I'm quitting.
You just work
Because,
safer.
yeah, you realize it's a hazard, and it's up to you to stay safe. I mean, every part of this business, because we have no help, is up to us to protect ourselves.
But for so long, too, I watched a documentary a few months ago about when Magic Johnson revealed he had AIDS, and fellow basketball players were questioning whether or not they would maybe pick it up. I mean, at the beginning, too, nobody knew how. I mean, they knew how it was transmitted, but nobody knew other ways you might get it, and so...
It was scary.
Yeah, it must have been frightening.
And there was so much fear, so much that we
Misinformation.
So much that you think you could drink off the same glass and get it from somebody.
Exactly. So
and
even if a man is wearing a condom with you,
yes,
I would, And one last thing I think before I let you ladies, well, I still have a few more questions, but there's a dark-haired woman, I forget her name too, that was featured in the documentary that has her boyfriend.
Aaron Marks.
Or was it her husband?
Her husband.
They were married at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Well, I wrote a question before I saw that part, which was, are dating and relationships impossible as a prostitute? And then I am immediately shown 10 minutes later that not only is this husband, not only is he okay with it, but I mean, he's borderline bragging and proud that other men are sleeping with his wife, and she obviously has no issues with it. I mean, talk about a stereotype. I still can't believe. Are they still married?
Yep. They've been married a lot of years. This isn't a short-term relationship. And you would think that, some of us don't have relationships. But a lot of us do. We're human like everybody else. You want to have somebody to come home to.
Right.
It's just like every other profession. There is no different. The only difference, I think, is that to be with somebody who's a sex worker, it would take somebody who really was open-minded and understood that their work was their work, and that it was a job, which is sometimes hard for people to wrap their head around, that it actually is a profession. It's a job.
That I mean, I got to say that blew me away when they actually. That's the first time I've ever seen a prostitute's husband on film discussing, how he's okay with it. I mean, it was definitely a little mind expanding for me, because I don't, just goes against the it's a huge stereotype.
Yeah.
Is all.
There are a lot of stereotypes attributed to us.
There are, but that one really, for some reason, blew me away. So, Kristen, now you executive produced American Courtesans. Will you be producing or directing another film or a documentary? Do you have any ideas?
Yeah, we have a couple in the works already. One that has to do more with the stripping industry.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. And another one that has to do with what we call trafficking nowadays, or the ideas of what goes on in this underworld, and trying to sort of blow away some myths about, like, as the term we used, pimps or traffickers.
Right.
Because as we were talking about earlier before we were on the air, that isn't black and white either. Many of them offer a step up in life for women, while others offer a step down. And so you have what you would call like a good pimp, who actually takes a girl who maybe is in a desperate situation and makes her safe and makes sure she has shelter and food and is taken care of, and her life becomes better, versus one that lives off of you and drains you and takes everything away from you. So we're working on one about that too.
What about the strippers one? That one, I have questions about that.
Okay.
Well, what is the basis of it?
It's,
if you can reveal that.
I mean, a little bit. It's more of a reality thing, but
Okay.
not inflammatory as some of the reality shows out there, but more to debunk the stereotypes about strippers, because there's ones that are still playing around with drugs, or ones that are getting college educated. There are ones that are actually from good homes and are supplementing their income and love to dance. And then there are these pole dancers that are
Oh my God!
freaking amazing.
Yeah, it's a
Athletes.
workout, right?
Oh.
They-
Yeah,
I mean, you can pay
it's
money.
becoming an Olympic
Yeah.
sport coming up. So you're
Right.
talking athletes. So once again, the old stereotype doesn't quite fit.
Well, the thing that I always am interested in is that the gentlemen clubs in San Francisco, I mean, they should be called the gray area, because things go down at those strip clubs, so I'm told, that that, I mean, are not legal. And that, on one side you have, that, politicians and all kinds of head officials end up in those nightclubs, and yet the next day they're fighting against you guys, and it's just really interesting. And then I have like an issue with the whole, like booking a stripper to go to like a bachelor party or something. I mean, that just seems like borderline prostitution itself, and I don't know. That sounds like a really interesting documentary. I can't wait to
That's
see
why
it.
we're working on that one too, because we
Yeah.
realize that's an area that people don't know a lot about. But the thing when you said that about strip clubs and what goes on and not, I always come up with the same question. Why are we here in the United States? You know the amount of real serious crime we have, the problems we have right now.
Right.
Why are we trying to police our citizens' sex lives?
Yeah, and I mean,
And they never can. They never will.
no.
Dictate our individuals' moral compasses. I mean,
That's a huge industry in San Francisco itself. I mean, on
It's
the
a huge industry
North Beach,
everywhere.
right? But I mean, I don't know how many strip clubs are in San Francisco, but it's got to be. Like
my
15.
whole thing is that one of these days, and then I think it would actually show in the numbers, all of us who work in the sex industry one day or 1 week should stop working, and we should all go stand in line at welfare.
Oh, okay, that'll be great.
Can you imagine? Everybody like, okay, give, go back to work. We cannot even process this.
Well, ladies, thank you so much for coming in. Kristen DiAngelo and Pearl Callahan. What's your Twitter, Kristen? Do you have Twitter, Pearl?
No, I don't Twitter.
It's just Kristen DiAngelo with a capital K, capital D, and capital A. My name's spelled straight across.
Got it. Kristen DiAngelo and Pearl Callahan. Thank you so much. And again, where are you guys going to be this afternoon?
At
This
the
evening?
San Francisco Hilton in the Financial District, 750 Kearny at 6 p.m., talking about the anti-trafficking stings here in the United States.
Thank you so much, ladies. And I'll be back in about 15 minutes with Kristen Joy, a meditation guru spiritual girl. So we'll talk to her in a little bit. You're listening to KPOO San Francisco.